welcome to Who Watches Podcast. We've got a special one. We're going to be covering the making of the Star Wars Holiday Special. I am Travis Fishburne.
I am Alex Brunel.
I'm Dustin Meadows.
And joining us is a special guest. With us is Adam Witt. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, I am Adam Witt of the Chicago Sun-Times.
All right.
Thanks for being here tonight, Adam, to talk about true geeky nonsense.
Very happy to be here. This is a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I never thought, never at one time in my life, I never thought I'd meet three other people who knew what this was.
Yeah.
So, thank you for making me feel a little less lonely in this Star Wars fandom world. A little less cold.
Let alone, a professional documentary crew going out and doing some deep research into, how the Star Wars Holiday Special was made, and to give you some proper historical context as far as where it belongs in television history and Star Wars history and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all in the new documentary, A Disturbance in the Force, on Disney Plus, which I just watched.
Is it on Disney?
I don't think it's on Disney.
Or no, not Disney Plus. Sorry. I rented it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, I rented it on Apple.
Let's say
on Apple, not on Apple Plus, on Apple TV. Okay.
I would love if Disney would have put this on.
Well, that's
on
true.
Disney
I guess
Plus. They
I
should
guess-
have just licensed this.
I guess the
Let's say-
entire point is they would never.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a huge mistake on my part. But anyway.
Say I watched it, but it was not on Disney Plus.
No.
They do
Because,
bring it up.
I've speculated in the past, like they're doing everything they can possibly with the Star Wars Holiday Special within the terms of the contract that they signed when they purchased Lucasfilm. That's my little theory.
Yeah,
Mm.
they keep the amount of footage of Star Wars in a fair use amount, like the actual
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
The rest is like publicity stills, or whatever. But
Well, just them in that special, like they're monetizing it in every way that they can that isn't actually showing it to us. They're putting the cartoon on streaming. They're making waves and waves of different type of Life Day toys, accessories,
Right.
baubles and stuff. But there's, multiple uploaded copies of this thing to YouTube, and it's proliferated a lot around the internet for, 20 years now or whatever. And they've never done, or nobody's ever done anything to quell that at any point.
no,
Yeah.
Alex
there he
gave
is.
us- Yeah. It's Chewbacca with
it's
the
a
lightsaber.
Han shooting first. Awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's pop culture, by
Yeah.
the way. The
Right.
red robes, all this. It's amazing. Any of this is pop culture. So I was really blown away watching this documentary on the subject of something that up until 1996, maybe, I couldn't find another person who knew it existed. And yet I watched it on TV as a kid in front of the TV, and it was the most mind-blowing thing imaginable. It didn't become bad until 10 years ago. I mean, that was where there was enough saturation for people to even know about it. It was too obscure a reference until like the Force. Was it a big joke before like the Force Awakens? It was like around then, right?
I think so. By the time
became a-
Well, I mean, Robot Chicken had spoofed it
Mhm.
Oh, right.
significantly
Yeah.
before then.
Okay.
South Park spoofing it in the Fighting the Frizzies segment.
Yeah,
that was like
that's the
early
thing.
days of South Park. That
And
was
they
in
go
the
They're
into
first
playing to
season of South
nerds
Park.
though. They're playing to an inside.
That's
audience.
true.
Yeah.
That is true.
the first
People
time
play-
I
yeah, I mean,
watched
My
that-
parents didn't watch, Robot Chicken, so it's playing to us. That's an us show.
Yeah, I did not understand the Fighting the Frizzies reference the first time I watched that South Park special.
Oh, same.
And then
I
even
didn't understand
after,
Fighting the Frizzies when that was in the tape that I had as a kid.
because then when I
So-
finally did see it, that was not the cut that I had seen. It was a different one. So I didn't even see the Fighting the Frizzies.
Right. That's
Commercial.
Fighting the Frizzies is in the, I think, Boston broadcast, maybe? I think there were 4 broadcasts circulating for the longest time, and 3 of them had original commercials. And there were some that were national commercials that were in every copy, and then Fighting the Frizzies is a local bit, so that was only in that one region's broadcast bootleg.
Right. The popular one is the one that is overwritten entirely by the United Auto Workers. That's the one. That's the one that's on.
Those were part of the
YouTube.
National. That's in all copies of the Star Wars Holiday
Okay.
Specials of the United Auto Workers commercials.
Yeah, which is fascinating. I mean, I'm a UAW family, so it's like,
yeah, wonderful. Those were the only commercials I felt like I had no context for when I was a kid. I had no idea what that was about. All the other commercials, I at least like knew enough about pop culture and kind of stuff to get what was happening in that, but like those I had no clue.
But as a kid, suddenly Star Wars was on your TV. It was mind-blowing. That Star Wars Holiday Special was not bad until we had the luxury for it to be bad, which means everybody could see it. It was a pop reference. It was something you could readily available. That is when that became what a misstep. It was immediately forgotten. So much so that when I would talk to people later, they'd be like, "There's not a Star Wars TV show." I go, "No, there was a Star Wars TV show in the 70s. I swear to you." And you couldn't prove it to anybody until I went to my very first Comic-Con in Chicago in 1996. It was like immediately after I moved there, and I was like, "Oh, big city stuff. There's Comic-Cons here." And I went to the VHS, the glorious old school VHS, miles of which at the Comic-Con, and I go, was there a I see everything, and I go, oh my God, there's Shazam. I watched that as a kid. Oh my God, there's a Spider-Man TV movie. I watched that as a kid, and I go, was there a Star Wars TV show? And the guy's like, oh, you mean this? And hands me the Holiday Special, and I was like, it was the first person I'd ever heard go, yes, but not only yes, here it is. Do you want to watch it tonight? And I was like, no way. And the other thing was there was a superhero, a Justice League Super Friends live action show. And I was like, that was the other thing I'd tell people.
Challenge of the superheroes.
Right. And I was like, no, it had Green Lantern, The Flash, Hawkman. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, like live action, along with like Adam West as Batman. And I got that day. I mean, I walked away from that very first Comic-Con with like 10, 12 tapes high. Shazam, Spider-Man. It's all the stuff I tried to tell people for years. But yeah, the Holiday Special. And I went home and watched that, and I was like, it wasn't bad to me, because I was like, I've been starving to see this thing my entire life, or prove that it existed. It's just, I was focused on my memory. I go, no, I sat down on the floor, and they said, the greatest night of television was the Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk. And the Wonder Woman and Incredible Hulk will not be seen tonight, which is ordinarily a bummer, because it's rarely like, and here's Spider-Man or Captain America, which they had made those movies too. Usually it was something else. Like, here's some adult crap. And like, oh yeah, like Wonder Woman and Hulk. But this night it was Star Wars. It's pretty cool.
And they begin this doc with that same announcement that Wonder Woman will not be shown tonight.
Yes. I felt so heard by this documentary, because all the references were there. Like I was just like, everything I just told you, used to be a good story. And then this documentary begins with the Goldbergs, and I was like, Goldbergs, they take away all my stories because they put them all into a TV show.
Yeah. Well, Adam Goldberg is a producer on this doc, so.
Oh, okay.
Of course, why they threw in all.
He's also named Adam, and that show reminds me a lot of my early youth. But,
some things are more for you than others.
Everything now, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the point we're at in our culture. But this doc, I was kind of expecting like an overlong YouTube essay going into it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where like, there's like really good overlong YouTube essays that are like really well produced for that format, but that's kind of what I thought I was going to be getting by going into
that format.
Well, like, what
pretty good for a place that turns out crap.
Well, right, but by that format
you're listening
I mean,
to
like,
us on now.
Right, but by that format I mean like made by like 3 or maybe 4 people, and they like flew across the country by themselves with their camera to shoot an interview, and like, or like the Defunct Land guy, which is like he produces these incredible things in intense detail that are like they can't rise above to like a feature kind of a thing, because that's just the level of production it is, no matter how great the content is. But I was like blown away to see like not only were the interview subjects like really well curated, and they didn't have just like useless modern day pop culture figures talking about it. They had like modern day pop culture figures who like really knew their stuff talking about it. Well shot, really well researched. I didn't think they missed any boxes.
No,
the only thing
that was shocking.
Yeah, the only thing that I was like hoping would come up, but I doubted it would, just because it's it's mildly related, but such a tangent, which is the Star Wars Christmas album from 2 years subsequent,
mhm.
Christmas in the
Right.
Stars.
That'll be
Which-
the sequel.
That's got to be the sequel. I don't know why there's not more discussion about this, because this is one of the truly, like, this is where Santa Claus and Jesus exist
Yeah.
in Star Wars, is on that album.
Ah,
During
So,
our original holiday special show, Alex wanted to incorporate that in, and I'm like, no, we got to save that for next year. And then it never
Yeah,
came.
we still haven't done that show.
I mean,
Yeah.
if this doc does well, who knows?
I
Yeah.
would love to get them to interview John Bon Jovi for
There
the Star Wars
is-
Christmas in the Stars
Oh,
documentary.
Um,
And
the
talk
guy
about his lead
who-
vocal solos on the last track, which is like 8 minutes long or something. It's insane.
well, look how far down in pop culture you are now thirsting for. You're like, yeah, this
know.
covered so much ground. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, this documentary made every argument I've ever made in favor for, or at least giving the context of Star Wars, or the holiday special when it came out. It must seem so alien to discover it in 2016 or or whatever, because that format, which they set this up so nicely in the documentary, but this is what I've always had to tell people is, no, that was like a show type style. Like you would see, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes Friday night it would be the Village People's Variety Hour, and there'd be skits with the Village People. Everything was skits and songs. Sonny and Cher, skits and songs. And it was just a thing. It was just, and there's only one show left with that format, and that's Saturday Night Live. It's still
Right.
that format. 90 minute skits and songs.
That was the biggest thing for me, was just like I knew, like, in a broad way that stuff existed, but being forced to watch clips of Lawrence freaking Welk and, like,
Oh, yeah.
Bob Hope
Amazing. Amazing.
and Donnie and Marie and, like, all this stuff.
Incredible.
And just the mind-numbing vapidity of it. I can't remember who made the point that it was, like, in the documentary, which one of the people said this, but, like, that it was family entertainment that no group really particularly liked, just that they
Right.
all could watch.
Yeah.
So you wind up with, like, the most milquetoast thing you could possibly have. And seeing all of that, and then, like, after just broadly knowing it, was really significant, and also really crystallized to me why punk music was, like, an absolute necessity in the mid to late 70s.
Yep.
Because if that's what you're faced with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis.
And
like-
punk comedy. All
Yeah.
the comedians. Punk had already broken in comedy too. Saturday Night Live. This
Right.
is coming out like the third year of the original
Right.
run of Saturday Night
So
Live.
this is the death rattles of, like, this
Mhm.
format on its way out.
Yeah.
And then from a
yeah.
film perspective, everything's like getting dark and gritty and grimy and
Yeah.
more adult.
Yeah.
oriented.
But and I've always said as well, one of the great things about the holiday special is, if you want to know how radical Star Wars the movie was, here's where pop culture was. You could take Star Wars and put it into what everybody was watching, which is variety shows and Harvey Korman and these old ass comedians. Bob Hope makes an appearance in this. Oh, Paul Lynde Paul Lynde was so ubiquitous in TV. He was on everything. Match Game, Hollywood Squares. He would show up in everything. Paul Lynde as Krennic. So when I just saw in that, I was like, I can't believe they made Chris Christopherson as Han Solo. It's actually about the coolest possible
That
recasting.
was a highlight for me. I was like, I
Isn't
that
want to
awesome?
live in the universe where Chris Christopherson is Han Solo now.
I mean, it's the only thing in that whole montage where they show you all the pop culture TV specials and how they used Star Wars. It's the only moment that doesn't drop the ball. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like, oh yeah,
Really?
no,
Oh, that's awesome,
That's
actually.
smart. Yeah, that's the move.
Who you gonna make Han Solo? Chris Christopherson? Oh, okay. He's got to sing next to Donnie and Marie, but he's pulling it off.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's fantastic. I had a similar concern to Alex coming in, not so much the YouTube essay thing, but like I saw the trailer and I remember seeing like Gilbert Gottfried and like a bunch of comedians as
Right.
the talking heads, and I was really worried this was going to be like an I Love the '90s kind of thing where it's just
Right.
them dumping on it, and I was very happy that was not the case, and that became very apparent like 10 minutes, and I was like, oh no, these are people that like
Right.
genuinely have a reverence for this, that aren't just like making like low-hanging fruit jokes about it.
No, that's a really good thing about the format is they pump out all the yawn takes on the holiday special in the first 5 minutes or 3 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, those are all the yawn takes. And then it just stops on a dime and goes, okay, here's the context. And you're like, yes, like an in-depth thing on Charlie Lippincott, who was just
oh my
talk about a
gosh.
guy who foresaw the future of movie marketing. When
Why
they get
isn't-
into what Charlie Lippincott did for Star Wars, you're like, that is how movies are marketed today.
Yeah, I
That's
can't believe
incredible.
there's not like a Charlie Lippincott documentary after just watching that like 10-minute segment about
That
him
was
in
awesome.
this doc.
And you know, Lucasfilm, they didn't expect this kind of success. I mean, and frankly, you know, the holiday special could have been pitched assuming that Star Wars was going to bomb in some way. You know, it's like or that nobody would go see Empire Strikes Back. It was the common wisdom that sequels made about 40% of the original, and then if you made a third one, it'd make 10% of the original. You know, so that's George Lucas couldn't foresee what Star Wars would become or he would become. So he's just struggling to go get the word out there, get to Comic-Cons, get toys, get cards, get a holiday special, get these robots on. You know, I mean, it's just like there was no amount of success that was going to last. This was an anomaly. This was it.
It wrote the book for doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, make all the money you can right now because this ain't lasting. What are you kidding me? This is impossible. We've already pulled off.
Yeah,
and so that's what Lippincott was in there. Is like, oh, now I have to do something that's never been done before in a huge way.
Taking the stars of this movie to like a Comic-Con, like, oh, you guys, you should like this, and thinking like this is a new, unique way to promote a movie, and now when a major studio announces they are not going to have a Comic-Con panel, it's like, oh, there's something wrong.
That's the news.
Good observation. Yes, that's the news.
Well, that's like everything is does it too. Like not just movies, like TV as well.
Totally.
Like I just got to see an Archer live event last week that they ended up throwing together last minute because they couldn't do a Comic-Con this week for the finale. So like it's hard to just not imagine that being the standard now, like for all of it.
And I love how.
Sorry, it's the thing that was so incredible to me, learning that like Charlie Lippincott basically responsible for all of this. There was no evolution process. There was no like group of people who thought where one guy suggested this and another lady suggested why, you know, like all this stuff. Just Charlie Lippincott thought of all this stuff and did it. And we just still do all of that exact same stuff almost 50 years later, which is baffling.
And at the time, I mean, they couldn't foresee the success. And so he's building the track in front of the train, but they've also built the world's fastest train, you know? So it's like, here it comes, you know, you've got to have toys by Christmas. I mean, I assume it's Charlie Lippincott, but the early bird special thing for the action figures is one of the great genius moves in pop culture history. The guy should have a Nobel Prize for that one.
Oh yeah. Well, now pre-orders are fairly standard with stuff like that too.
True. That's true.
Like,
we're still doing that to this day.
Yeah. Just one more thing that kind of has become the model for it.
And Star Wars is so huge. I love that it also owns the bad version of itself. There is no comparison to the holiday special in terms of difference from the original product and being the bad thing, so bad it's good. Like, what owns that more than Star Wars also? Star Wars is like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, actually.
No,
the best worst thing is also Star Wars.
About it.
Well, it's probably got to be the shortest time between that thing coming out and then also doing the worst thing it's ever done, like so close, because like a lot of these other things are around for years before, like, you know, we start getting like awful CW versions of the show or whatever else.
Well, and that's another thing that they did not forget to cover in this documentary. There is not a single box I had of discussion topics on this that this didn't tick off, and one is the fact that TV was disposable. Nobody was ever going to see this.
Right.
Nobody watched a TV show twice. I mean, well, okay, they made reruns, but that's syndication. That's a whole different thing. It's TV special. That's network purely. It airs. That's it. You never saw you never saw any of those specials. Donnie Marie was never rerun, you know?
Right.
So it was like, yeah, why not put it on TV? It'll be one night event. Nobody's ever going to see this stuff again. Like TV shows were routinely just taped over. Like nobody thought this stuff would last forever. I mean, movies you could only see really once in your lifetime. There was never a re-release of a movie. You know, whenever I see on Twitter someone has watched a movie 50 times so they can pick out a plot point. And I'm like, movies weren't meant to be watched more than once, by the way.
Yeah.
But TV shows doubly so.
Mm-hmm.
No,
It was
I
just never going to be pop culture. There was no pop culture yet. You know, they were just inventing pop culture actually at the time. In fact, George Lucas did with American Graffiti. But you know, another thing he invented.
Yeah,
what you
he's
said
better
about
at inventing
the...
than following through generally, but we're glad for his inventions.
That's a weird
Yes.
take, but that'll take up the rest of
Well,
the show.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow
I-
through.
No, he followed through.
You've been
but then,
reading
I mean,
Twitter,
like,
or did you
there's
come
so
up with
many-
that thought?
No, there's so many missteps. I've been living this thought for my entire life. I
That's
mean,
true. He comes by it honest.
Okay. Well,
No.
if you say that, then you know where I'm coming from.
I do,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
fine. That's great.
I mean, I've been having Star Wars takes since I managed a video store in Ohio. You know, so like I've been discussing Star Wars for a while. So
Yeah.
sometimes certain takes take on their own life, and you're like, I think you heard that from a guy from out of town. But anyway, go.
No, these guys have known me for like almost 20 years now. That's what I've been saying since college.
That's
At the
true.
very earliest, the very latest, anyway.
Well, I instinctively call bullshit as a guy who's talked movies my whole life. So you'll
That is fair.
understand.
That is 100% fair, man. There's so many times where I've heard people having a conversation, you know, nearby that I would have an opinion on, but I'm just like, I'm just gonna ruin a perfectly good conversation that two people are
I know.
enjoying if I step
Right.
over there.
No, no. Yeah, no. Well, only because we're in this forum that can I
Yeah.
know that's going to be received.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, out in the
exactly.
world, you're like, I don't need to prove to you that George Lucas is a genius. Well, why
Right.
don't we just enjoy
I'm not
this
saying he's
margarita?
not a genius. I'm just saying that lows were low. That's what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Yeah, that absolutely.
Um,
Although
I'll let
people
that
are people are starting to match his lows now, though. So
I mean, there's a playbook
Well, you know,
that's
the-
been
this
written. The playbook's being followed.
This documentary ends with that. It says, you know, sometimes you make something that's not good, but you can't punish someone for putting themselves out there, which I feel people frequently do. Of like, how dare you make a thing that ultimately didn't end up good over the course of 3 years of your life? You're like, it's how can you can only say
yeah.
that with the perspective of it being done, you know?
For sure.
And I'm very much of the mindset is like, you know, this is very much obviously having context to see why this is what it is.
Right.
Definitely makes a lot more sense because I didn't know a lot of that going in, but like I'm also, whether it's movies, shows, I would much rather go watch a movie that ends up not working and they at least tried something different or new, even if it was just new or different for them,
Right.
then
yeah.
keep giving me the same thing. That as a staunch defender of Halloween 3 and Halloween Ends,
I remember the
luxury.
first time I watched
So,
Halloween 3
both
was
Halloween
in, I
3s.
think 2009. And the post I made about it like recently came up on my like Facebook memories. And I posted like, I don't understand why this movie is not considered to be really fun and great. And then like this was 2009. I still had angry comments on my Facebook post praising Halloween 3. And I was as confused then as I am now.
Well, that one didn't get what's the word for it? You know,
reevaluated.
reappraisal.
That was reappraised. That's a really fairly recent. So I can see.
I know. I was like, I was a
actually.
couple of years ahead
Yeah.
on that one. I guess.
Right,
Just
right,
like,
right.
but that was. But I mean, I'm also the kid that, you know, saw Star Wars Holiday Special in the late 90s, but I'm 12 years old for the first time and I never hated it. I never thought it was like great or not dumb,
Yeah,
but
it's
I
just
never
more Star
hated it.
Wars. That's
Yeah.
the thing. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's just more Star Wars. If you're just
Yeah.
a movie fan, you're like, well, that's not a very good piece of content, or that's not a very good presentation of a mythos. You know,
No,
like,
but,
and
you
you're
know-
not wrong. You know, but
Yeah.
But now I've got to the point where I've seen a movie that interviewed one of the hologram dancers, or like the guy
Oh!
who designed the hologram
Come
dancer
on!
costumes, and then the
well,
guy
Bob
who
Mackie,
owns
he's
one
a
of these
huge
things.
name. Yeah.
I had no clue that Bob Mackie did this Star Wars Holiday Special. Work.
Me neither. Yeah.
Holy crap!
Incredible. I mean, that's like getting one of the great like production designers or cinematographers, or like you're like,
absolutely.
oh my God, Bob Mackie.
That's
there were-
similar to Janusz Kaminski having shot Cool as Ice,
Right.
the Vanilla Ice movie.
100%.
I know
Correct
Adam
analogy.
appreciates that because you were trying to convince people that the Cool as Ice cinematographer, his jump from that to what else did what else did you pair it with?
Schindler's List.
Yeah, Schindler's List.
There you go.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Hey, people contain multitudes.
Right. Hey, and you know what? Cool as Ice is actually pretty well shot.
Oh, cool. There's great.
It's not shot like shit.
shots.
You can put it up
There's
against Three
great
Ninjas
shots
or whatever.
in
Yeah,
that. Like you
Yeah.
you watch Cool as Ice on mute. You'll have a good time.
well, right, 100%. Yeah,
I
there are
think-
those movies.
I think the biggest surprise for me was finding out that Mick Garris was involved with this.
Oh my god.
Oh, wow.
Yes. No, in the
Because-
holiday special, like yes, he was
I
a
didn't see his name.
puppeteer, I think, right? He
Ah.
was an interview guy too. He had the long white hair.
Yeah, he's got that gorgeous white mane.
Oh, that was Mick
Yeah,
Garris. Okay.
he
Oh, yes,
was-
of course it was. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he was operating the R2 was his
Oh,
job
yeah.
on the special.
That's what it said, yeah.
Mick Garris, who is also the person that I just see the most out and about since I moved out to LA.
You know,
I think-
for
Really?
a couple of years, like me, same.
I think I've seen him 5 times all just this year, like at various screenings and stuff, like just hanging out.
Fantastic.
That's funny.
Fantastic.
The one of the other things I loved too was I knew that, like, you know, there was a director switch over. I knew that there were long hours and stuff, but to get the details of, like, this was like a real filmmaker that was hired to make this thing because George trusted him to the
Yeah.
extent that he would get this position, and that he was so at odds with what this thing had to be that he lasted, what was it, 3 or 3
I think it was 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the person who just like goes in and does the work comes in and does the rest of it, and like that also makes everything makes so much more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not a film medium, but George is going to try and put as much artistry as he can into that. But,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the Lucasfilm people fell away so quickly. They're
Right.
and as it was said a couple times, like they were busy.
They were doing
Yeah.
some stuff.
They had stuff to do.
They're busy trying to figure out what the company and what the brand and what everything actually was.
Yeah, they
Which
didn't.
is-
Who could have foreseen?
Yeah, what you had pointed out about like it being the fastest train that was going off the tracks, and they were trying to figure out like, what is this? What are we, and this was all an attempt to keep it alive and in the public mind, as long as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Star Wars was still in theaters and they were trying to, and there were re-releases. I mean, it was re-released. I saw Star Wars in 3 different re-releases before Empire, or 2 different before Empire, and then 1 after. They kept re-releasing it. And I was like, okay, well, I know what I'm seeing this weekend. So yeah, more Star Wars. I mean, and then Boba Fett is a cartoon, and then you get the toy like a year before Empire comes out. That was good work, Charlie Lippincott. That was great.
Yeah.
So
because
Adam,
we'll
do
take
you-
any new character, give me any new character. Or in the case of the holiday special, give me the old characters. The one thing I loved about this that I'd forgotten, I haven't watched the holiday special in a while, is, I mean, when I was a kid watching it, it's like Han Solo is back. Luke Skywalker's back. Chewbacca's back. There's new Wookiees, but then also the Cantina guys are back. Like that was as
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
as Han Solo. I'm like, oh my God, the band is back. Walrus Man's back. It's like, that was just like, I hadn't seen, you could only see these guys in the theater, and it wasn't, it was in and out of theaters, and sometimes it was released, but there was no way to watch Star Wars again unless it was re-released, but maybe I didn't know it would ever be re-released again,
And my favorite thing as a kid watching it about that cantina scene, and something that they knock about it, which is fair because all those masks are super chintzy and have to be shot in a certain way to not look
Right.
the way they look.
Right.
But being able to actually see them in the special, like as a
That's
kid,
true.
being able to like actually fully like, oh, look at that crazy thing. There was not that much detail. Or like,
Mhm.
oh, I'd seen Brainiac in like a photo, but I couldn't ever see him in the movie. And there he is. He's just with a big brain, like I loved that.
Yeah, it was like that with Alien, because the alien was so hidden in the
Mhm.
darkness that
Mhm.
the great thing about H.R. Giger's book is you go, oh, that's what the alien looks like. Well, they should
Yeah.
have put more light on it, So,
Yeah.
it was the same kind of feel.
Yeah,
no,
cool.
I had always thought like, oh, I wonder where the rat is in A New Hope.
I was so
But-
happy to learn where the rat came
Yeah.
from.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was a
my
great
God,
story,
yeah,
wasn't
what
it?
a great connection. Yeah.
Rick Baker, more movie royalty,
Right.
Yup.
effects royalty, just another great thing that happened with Star Wars is Rick Baker worked on it. Yeah, Rick Baker rat from Feast of the Gods, which is a famous so bad it's good movie that we all watch.
Right.
Incredible.
Just wonderful. I'm going to take a pee break, guys.
That
Internet, I'll be right back.
okay.
All right.
All right.
Tell us how it comes out.
Are my levels okay? Because
you sound okay now.
You sound good now. I
sound
think
okay
you got
now.
turned up.
All right, I was, I guess, quiet earlier. This is a new
Yeah,
setup.
you sounded a
So,
little quiet earlier, but you sound
Okay.
fine now.
Well, I was talking a
Cool.
lot as well. So.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, Adam, you had mentioned getting to see it on several different, reissues. Do
Yes.
you remember? Do you recall like the title changing?
No, that I didn't even. That's not something that occurred to me. The
Like,
idea that it was
yeah.
episode 4.
Mhm.
I don't think that felt like something that had to be discussed way down the line. That just
Yeah.
didn't strike a thing with us. Who knows if that first release, but I don't think so. I mean, I feel like it had been out for a little while before I finally saw it. I mean, it was in
Mhm.
theaters for a while. But no, I don't remember the title change. I don't think that was. I wouldn't have noticed.
Cool.
I remember reading that in Starlog magazine or something like that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it is episode 4." I guess a lot of movies don't begin with episode 4. That's weird, you know.
Yep.
But that was years later that I'm reading in Starlog or something like that. I was like, "Oh," or Empires, where it became more like episode 5. Oh, Star Wars was episode 4. Oh, okay, I see. But it didn't occur to me that I'm like, oh, what a genius film device to begin in the middle of a story,
Mhm.
which is what other adults watching Star Wars at the time were like, oh, that's interesting. Episode 4. Oh, like a serial, but I didn't know what serials were, but what a gutsy way to open a movie, I got to tell you.
Mhm.
That is, yeah, Star Wars. George Lucas is such a punk. Star Wars is a pretty punk movie. That is a lot of wild swings, man. Putting episode 4 to just really sell the idea that this is a serial, like, man, nobody done that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I
And,
guess Marvel does it all the time now. Everything
They
leaks
do.
in
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
4.
Yeah. That's a
But don't you
whole
could
other thing.
turn your voice up. That's a good thing, because when we went to see Star Wars in '77, we didn't go, oh, what happened in the first 3? No, everybody just watched this cool movie. Same thing with the Marvels, but
Yeah.
we'll figure that out over time. It's just people right now are like, nobody's ever made an episode 4 first, and I don't know why they have that opinion, but anyway. I mean, I don't know why. I'm like, you're not a very good nerd, are you? If you're like, oh, how am I going to follow all this backstory? Meanwhile, they just go see Oppenheimer like they know the entire history of fucking atomic engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, and
How
yeah,
movies work, guys.
that movie being so the way that it's edited and all the different
Oh.
points in time, I'm like, really?
Well, it's edited like an art film, of course, but
Mhm.
I just thought it was so funny when I watched it in theaters, and I knew that all these people had gone to Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I was like,
Mhm.
this feels like kind of a prank, because
Yeah.
anybody that's into Barbie, actually, really, a lot of them would not like Oppenheimer. I'm like,
Mhm.
two very different filmic experiences, but I mean, I
yeah.
guess that was the point. But I'm like, a lot of people had to feel like they got tricked, right?
Oh, I'm sure some people did. I was gonna
Yeah.
see them both anyway, but we definitely made a day of it and did them both. Although
It's great pop culture
we
to do that.
we
It's
flipped
awesome.
it. We did Oppenheimer and then Barbie, which I think was the move.
Mhm. Did you
Well,
do
it's so great that happened.
Dustin, did you do Saw Patrol?
Did not do Saw Patrol. Just did Saw X.
Saw Patrol. I love
If-
that this is a new thing. This is
Yeah.
pop culture, guys. We just
If-
broke ground on this pop culture concept this year.
If I'd had like a nephew or something, I might have done it. But
Saw Patrol.
well, let me phrase that. If I had a
It
nephew
was
that
something they
lived out
tried to
where
make
I do,
happen.
It's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So to sum up, Star Wars good.
Mhm.
Star Wars Holiday Special misunderstood in its time, but it must come off like an alien artifact to a current generation. You're like, why would you do Star Wars like this? I have intense context, and luckily this provides it, I think, for other people who are like, why, what, huh? That this documentary, it fills in all the gaps. It's all the conversations I've had are right here.
Oh yeah, and like I mentioned earlier before we started recording, I think I the first time I saw this was with Travis and Alex in college. We watched the Riff Tracks version,
Okay.
and like even then, like having formed my taste a little bit more, like I was never like, oh, this is the worst thing ever made. Like I was just very morbidly fascinated by it.
Right.
Like I was like,
yeah.
this is like I feel like my brain is melting. But I am also really happy that this exists at all.
Oh yeah.
So like
For sure.
yeah, there are very few things where like I have the vitriol of like this should never have seen the light of day. Like
That's-
it's
yeah.
very rare. Like
Right, right.
give me all the bad art. Bad art can be fun.
I mean, out of all the movies, I mean, I dislike very few movies because I can find an angle to like almost any movie. But there is one
Same.
movie whose name I will not say, and I do wish did not exist. But that is it, just one. Everything
the
else,
Fast
if I
and the
don't like
Furious
it, I'm like,
sequel?
Oh.
I've never said the name of Fast and Furious 2. I've never said those
Okay.
words in that order.
Oh,
Good
you
for
mean
you.
Too Fast, Too Furious?
That's the one.
but he can't say it. I
was
agree, yeah.
disappointed. We never got 3 Fast, 3 Furious, and they didn't keep.
I'm very curious what your movie is now. Is it Catwoman?
No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, and I'll tell you why. It's look, trust me, you don't want to know. You don't really care.
Is it because you're close personal friends with the director Pitoff?
I understood that reference.
Same. That was great.
That was very
Great joke.
good. Very good. I mean, that is the funniest director name, right?
Oh yeah.
Pitoff. One word name. That is the funniest director you could probably reference. Paul Preston and I will do this all the time. What's the funniest reference there? Whatever. If you're putting in the parentheses what movie someone was in, Harrison Ford crossing over. That's not the one you write.
Yeah.
6 Days, 7 Nights is never what's after Harrison Ford, whoever. Yeah, director. Pitoff.
Jury-
What's the funniest one?
Yeah, jury duty Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, exactly. She Devils Liam Neeson. Exactly.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I
yes.
play this game frequently. I love it.
Right. It's the best. Well, yeah, we're all on the same level. It is unique to have people that get these references, though. At one time, it was just Paul. Paul and I were the only people that could make each other laugh by saying Pitoff or the She Devils Liam Neeson.
I think honestly the only ding that I had against this, I really wish that we had gotten more of like the people who were actually like involved with it on screen, like with Hamill and Ford. Although I'm positive that it was not for lack of trying on the filmmaker's part.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
feel
reached
like
out.
I feel like new interviews with those cast members would cost about as much money as they spent to make the documentary as is.
100%. That's kind of what I figured was probably the case. And like, I mean, and Hamill also seemed to be about the only one even willing to talk about it. Like
Mhm.
Ford kind of like shuts down frequently over Star Wars stuff nowadays.
He just doesn't care. Yeah.
And anybody that they could get to talk, like I'm sure they could have gotten Peter Mayhew to talk if he were
Sure.
still around.
Yeah. I'm sure
yeah.
Carrie Fisher probably would have.
We had Bruce Valanche speaking for them all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
I love that they interviewed the dancers, which is just
Mhm.
That was
insane. I laughed so hard. I'm like, oh my God, they got all the dancers, but not one of the Wookiees. So obviously, and they didn't even
Yeah.
put up the Wookiees declined,
Because-
comments.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
Yeah,
was
because
not
Lumpy
expecting
was-
to see one of the guys from Jefferson Starship interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
then
was
like
li-
a studio jam with Jefferson Starship.
Yeah, and then like
it's awesome.
just hearing how their shoot went, I was like, oh, it makes sense that it turned out the way it did now if that was your only real direction.
Totally.
It's incredible that it's Jefferson Starship. I mean, as a pop
Yeah.
cultural cannon, a 20 millimeter shell or whatever, whatever those cannons fire, that this is for pop culture. It's like all the way down to Jefferson Starship is the band at the end. That's amazing.
Yeah. Trev, what do you got about the people in the Wookiee suits?
Oh, I don't have any other than Lumpy was played by a child, right?
Oh, okay. Is that right?
I think it was played by a little girl. So like
For some
she
reason,
would
I have
be
Deep Roy
like
in my head, but I think Deep Roy didn't start playing in Star Wars until
No.
Jedi.
yeah.
And Kevin
Droopy
Peter
McCool,
Hall
who's
as
on our lower
Mama.
third right now. That's Deep Roy.
Who's?
Yeah, if you tune in to the live stream, you'll see Droopy. He's,
Oh, good.
Oh, Droopy
Wait.
McCool. Yes.
Wait, was Kevin Peter Hall really one of the?
No.
Oh,
I'm no.
oh man, that would have been. I was like, wow, from a Life Data Predator, cool.
Yeah, I'm throwing out the name of the guy that played the Predator to 3 people that I know get the reference,
Yeah,
and your audience, which I assume does as well.
Both of them, probably.
Yeah.
All both of them.
My wife would just politely nod and then ask me to explain the reference later.
That's
There's one of my favorite jokes. This is it reminds me of our show, so I'm saying it. There's one of my favorite jokes in the third Bill and Ted movie, and Bill and Ted Face the Music, when at the very beginning they're talking
great
about
sequel.
when they're talking about calling it quits, and Bill goes, "But Ted, what about our fans?" And Ted says something like, Well, we haven't seen Bill in a while, and I think Susan would understand. That was it. It's like a really throwaway. It is not responded to at all, but it's such a good little line.
There's so many good jokes. Like I really need to rewatch that one.
I was
again.
pretty impressed at how that worked. That was just really well done.
Made my heart so happy.
It was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No
it
No matter how
really
many
did.
wild swings it took, you know, and in this way
Yeah.
or that way, you're like, oh, but still, that serves exactly what I'm here for.
Yeah, I loved it. We did that podcast. I'd be happy to do
Mhm.
another Bill and Ted podcast, but I feel like we can't diverge that hard. I just wanted to make that little joke about two fans.
It's a good joke.
What else about this thing? I liked very much in the wrap up of the whole thing at the end, when Paul Scheer it was Paul Scheer, I think, going on about like why it is actually kind of great, and like, you know, like
Yeah.
acknowledging all the bad aspects, but like building up, you know, like you can love this thing, you could blah blah blah, you know, like
Right.
that was what I think the gist was, and I like that moment quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of very like positive, like, you know, you're gonna make bad art, like embrace it, like just make it, as opposed to worrying about whether or not people are gonna take it or not.
Right.
Yeah, it was a very upbeat, hopeful end for something that is so widely considered like just kind of a huge misstep.
Yeah. But yeah, like in the context of the thing, you can't even say it's a misstep. It's just a thing that they did.
That's very
You know,
true. That's,
like-
yeah, I chose my words poorly.
No, but that's the thing. No, because it could very easily, just by like looking at it on its face, be considered a misstep. Like, oh, they went in that direction. That's weird. But it's like, no, it's just that's a thing that happened. It wasn't really a step. It was just a thing that occurred in the machine.
And they
Yeah,
talk
it's-
about like stuff that George did in the late 80s and early 90s in Japan to like help sell Panasonic stuff.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Those are great because I love that he's standing in a field with an Emperor's Royal Guard and Rees.
Yeah.
And basically Ewoks, Rees,
Ewoks.
Darth Vader. I love that Rees is there. No weak way, but Rees is there.
Yeah. Maybe the Weequay mask was damaged, and Rees was like still like, oh yeah, that's still like wearable. Yeah, get that.
It would be a really great parody to do like something like this where you're like, oh yeah, and you know, there's a lot of things, and it just like cuts to like Weequay selling the Discman or something like that, and it's just full Weequay, like he's a celebrity they got to do the advertisement, and we let
I would
Weequay
love
do it.
that.
Oh,
Japan
this is
would love that.
Weequay.
I speak
Yeah.
for Japan. Japan would love this.
Yeah, Alex Brunel, ambassador of Japan. That's how I introduced you to all my friends.
That's correct. That's what it says on my business cards. Therefore, it must be true.
They said that Han Solo was supposed to be married to a Wookiee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the whole interspecies almost bestiality thing. Except, is it bestiality if it's a humanoid? I don't know.
I mean, it's in a different galaxy. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
I feel like the
I don't
whole
know.
conception of bestiality has to be reconsidered within the context of like intergalactic communication.
Yeah. 'cause,
yeah, it's
you
different
know,
if you can
Captain
speak each other's
Kirk
language.
would be.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
Captain Kirk is like, if it's sentient and has a hole, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah,
I mean, it's, you know,
if it's sentient and ain't got a hole, he's got an imagination.
yeah, there's still, I'm sure, like space age lubricants that like really.
Yeah, space age pegging.
They make jokes about that in the Marvel movies with Peter Quill.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
But I mean, Chewbacca's not a horse.
No, that's
mean,
what I'm saying. Like he's
True.
It's
He's
probably
added-
much more of a stand-in for other societies
Mhm.
and interracial. It's probably
Yeah.
that's probably the bold swing that Lucas is taking as a big fan of sociology, that he on other cultures and stuff like that. Like the idea in Star Wars was to present all these other like sand people and this and that. That's his like obsession with sociology and other cultures and stuff like that. So I mean, it's probably
Wow.
meant to be more highly advanced. The fact that Han Solo could date a Wookiee, or maybe that's how Chewbacca became his friend or whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, they're not horses, they're
No. They're definitely like they're beast-like in appearance, but they're humanoid in nature. So it's fine.
So maybe
fine
that's no
line,
big
I
deal.
guess.
Maybe you can marry a Greedo if
Yeah.
you want. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in what was it, this last season of The Mandalorian? what's her
yeah.
face? Amy
Pelimoto.
Sedaris is
Yeah.
dated a Jawa or is about to start dating a
Ah,
Jawa
right.
again. So yeah, I wonder if that's like one of their little holiday special references as well.
It would be a funny
Oh,
joke to
yeah.
do, like space bigot, the guy that thinks Weekways and Greedos shouldn't get married.
I'm honestly surprised that we haven't gotten like racism in the main stuff beyond against droids in the first
Yeah,
movie.
because we've had like
Right,
droid
yeah.
rights like come up.
Droid
So,
rights, man.
Yeah. I was like,
You're
we don't
droids.
serve them in here. It's like,
We don't serve their kind. I mean,
yeah.
but you know, we're
pretty
laughing,
good.
but that reference is pretty valid in '77.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's
No,
making a
it's
point. That's
it's
making a
solid.
point.
It's honestly one of the things like just like I can't believe no one's like adapted live action like some kind of horror take on the property at this point. Like it seems like it'd make for some interesting stories. Like, but at least in the main stuff that I've watched, I can't think of any time it's come up.
Well, I mean, that was a cousin to what you're talking about. There is, you know, that was one of the radical things about Get Out was the idea of like, what if all your worst fears in you know, being a biracial couple, like your worst fear would be that they're harvesting people that look like you. It's like, holy shit. Incredible combination of, you know, social commentary and horror, you know, put it in a horror context.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But
what
with
else?
Wookiees.
What other stones have we not
there was
unturned about this doc?
a line in here that I thought was hilarious, but you know, a sign of the times was they were talking about the toys and how the toys would not be available for another year because they were currently in production in the Orient.
Yes.
Yep.
The Orient.
Just to let you know that they're not making them in the Occident. It's not being made in England, Wales, Scotland, and it's being made in the Orient.
Probably be trickier to slip that into a TV advert these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what it was called. Well, I mean, that was the politically correct term at the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Say that instead of what you used to say, you dumb hillbilly.
Yeah.
Say call them Orientals. Jesus. I mean, that really, it's like, you know, that was the PC term when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
You
So
know.
who knows what terms we're saying today that are gonna like 30 years from now.
All of them. This is my point. We think we're so smart. I'm here to tell you, as somebody from the 80s and 90s that thought we were doing so good, we were trying so hard. I guarantee whatever we're saying right now, I'm like, say it while you can, whatever it is. I mean,
conversely, the whole time I've just assumed that we were doing awful and getting worse.
This is true.
well, we're trying hard not to, so that's fine. But it's just like,
some
but
of us are.
don't get so up on yourself that you're like, no. This generation has the correct terms. So like, no. You're gonna find out in 20 years you were terrible right now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No matter how good you think you're doing.
Oh, definitely. And I've never given my generation the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Oh no. I look back on like just 20 years ago and I'm like, oh boy.
Right.
Oh God, even me in college.
Yeah.
Me when I met Travis and Alex, I'd probably kick my ass back then if I met me.
I don't know why you guys were friends with me, quite frankly. I had an ego the size of the freaking Titanic in college, and I was frequently condescending and jerkbaggy to many people.
I put up with way worse in high
the same
school.
age.
And you had cool shit and cool taste.
Yeah, I skirted by for way too long in my life on that.
Definitely being interested in similar things bought a lot of points because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, these other people are not interested in the shit I'm in. That's fine, I guess, but I don't know that I want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Alex has that cool Caesar head.
I do have that
Yeah.
cool Caesar head. I recently had to clean the cool Caesar head.
Oh yeah, he's got to get
in the
dusty.
whole process. He's referring to the Planet of the Apes box set on DVD that came inside of a bust of Caesar.
Nice.
Nice. Amazing. The
Which I've
truth
been-
teller, the truth giver statue. The
No,
one from-
like
oh.
Caesar is the son from the last two
right.
Planet of the Apes films. So it's
Right.
still Roddy McDowell, but just not Cornelius. And
right.
For years I've been meaning to buy like the Blu-ray box set and just like switch out the discs inside of Caesar. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But it's super complete. Like it was all 5 original movies, the live action show, the cartoon, and the Tim Burton movie all inside of Caesar's head.
Oh,
So,
wow.
great set.
That's an amazing set.
So here's a point that I wanted to bring up as well. So, you know, I mean, at the end, they say this was avant-garde television, the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I think that's such a great, because while it was, this goes a long way to set the stage for what TV was like at the time and how you advertised movies at the time and all this sort of stuff. This is the biggest version of that. I mean, this is a lush production. That's a lot of costumes for a single show.
Yeah.
That's a lot of production value, and that's a lot. I mean, they were really taking a big swing. Granted, you know, but with a small aluminum bat that was all TV had, you know.
Right.
But you know, taking a pretty big swing, and the radicalness of the cartoon, which you know, blew my mind. The very first Star Wars cartoon ever. I watched 4-5 hours of cartoons every Saturday morning. I was obsessed with cartoons and Star Wars. And Star Wars was not a cartoon. And in 1978, for 12 minutes or whatever it is, I watched a Star Wars cartoon on TV, that was just mind blowing. But as an adult, I love they set the context of the art style, which nothing has ever been edited like since.
Yeah.
And that was very much, if you watch the movie Heavy Metal.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. The rotoscoped animation, the single frame, the what do they call it? Animating on the ones, which is to do 24 individual frames as opposed to animating on the 2s or 3s or whatever. You know, it was animated on the ones. It was rotoscoped. I mean, they mentioned all that in this documentary, which was amazing because it based on the influence of Mobius. Now you're going to do a cartoon, and you're going to. I don't think Mobius worked on this, but
it's just imitating.
Very like Star Wars, like. Ralph McCoy and stuff, he was influenced by Mobius.
Oh, yeah. No, Mobius was everywhere. But the idea of doing the very first Star Wars cartoon on network TV, you could do anything and we'd be happy. You could do, you could animate on the 2s, you could animate on the 3s, you could animate on the 15s or whatever. You know, you could, I just want to see an animated version of anything. And no, they went the other way, animating on the 1s. You know, there's Luke Skywalker, there's Han Solo, there's Chewbacca, and here's this new guy. And here's all this fantasy planets and so colorful and everything like that. It was just like, that was mind blowing. And even as an adult, that is an incredible animation piece.
I love the way that animation looks. I love
it's so bizarre.
How
it's such
smooth
a bizarre thing.
and the way that the characters move. I went back
so hippie,
and I watched A Cosmic Christmas because they referenced that George had seen that and liked it. And that's why he hired the Nirvana team to do that. And I'm like,
is that worth watching? Should I watch that this holiday
It's
season?
a very interesting. It's kind of bizarre because they did a weird
animation
thing.
was bizarre.
Yeah,
it was Ralph Bakshi. This is much more Ralph Bakshi, you know, style than regular animation.
Yeah, it's an interesting watch, especially because they did do a different frame rate on the aliens than they did everyone on Earth, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw you posted a review of it, Travis. I saw it was on Tubi. I was like, oh yeah, this is under half an hour. Absolutely. I'm going to check this out this week.
Yeah.
There seems to be a fan created 35 millimeter scan version of Cosmic Christmas.
Ooh.
So that exists.
I'd like to see that.
Thank Jorbis for internet people. They could have corrected the red out of the print. Anyway, I'll make sure you guys can watch this.
Hell yeah. Yeah, the cartoon has always been my favorite part of the special since the first time I saw it in college.
Right.
And I remember my first thought was like, oh, this looks exactly like, well, not exactly like, looks very much like Heavy Metal. And then just hearing them talk about the animators, like, and all that influence in the documentary was really cool because I've always been fascinated by that part of it.
That was the part that follows in the tradition of Star Wars, which is the young filmmakers, the rad people, and they made a hippie Heavy Metal adult cartoon out of it. Was their very first choice. I'm like, right on.
Yeah,
that's good.
And then as far as the avant-gardeness too, I mean, they spend the correct amount of time talking about this in the documentary, but just you have a measurable percentage of 97 minutes of content where there's just no dialogue in English, and there is dialogue that is grunts and growls and animal noises, and that's your oral input from these characters, which is insane. It's like, it's insane now. Like, you wouldn't do that now.
No.
Even.
Yeah,
you put subtitles. You do something, but like, wow.
Well,
That's
that's
Wow.
a gutsy choice.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty rad.
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
when
Star Wars begins with 2 robots. That's
Mhm.
the radical thing about Star
Yeah.
Wars. It's like it's just 2 robots for the first 15 minutes. Like that's a swing. That's a
Yeah.
big choice. You know, same thing with this.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say the first time I saw this, I was aware of it. I'd heard it was bad, and
Now, what year is this? How many Star Wars movies had you seen?
Mhm.
What was
I
Star
mean-
Wars to you at the moment you found out?
oh,
about
I
this?
mean, it was always really big to me. This was around 06 or 07,
Yeah,
and
that sounds about right.
so I had always heard about it and bought a copy of it off of eBay. And
so you'd seen
watched it.
6 Star Wars movies at this
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
And then heard, oh my gosh, there's another thing because there's nothing else
Mhm.
at 2006. There's 6 Star Wars movies and some books, and that's it. You know?
Yeah. And I'd heard it was about Chewbacca's family and life day, but
Not a bad
I
idea.
was not I could not comprehend like within like the first 10 minutes, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's no dialogue. Okay. This is interesting.
All right.
This is how
Yeah.
it's going."
And if it was well done, we'd consider it an amazing filmic flair
Mhm.
to do that. It's not well
Mhm.
done, so we're like, what the hell is this?
Mhm.
And that's another thing they bring up is the editors had never edited anything in their life.
My heart exploded when I heard that. Oh
Yeah.
my God, could you imagine? I mean, well, look, I'm an editor.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I'm probably talking to editors as well. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
your first edit and you haven't been taught to edit and you haven't been taught what creates rhythm and you haven't
Yeah.
studied Eisenstein and
Well,
I mean I'm just like break out in hives at that thought.
And that's
Wow,
like one of
there's-
those things too, where like you feel that when you're watching it, but once someone just tells you this is why it's that way, it's like the veil is lifted, and you're like,
It's a
okay,
that makes sense moment.
so much more sense now. Why
I
it is
see.
this way?
Okay.
yeah, this
It's a relief.
documentary is completely recontextualized this entire
Yeah.
thing for me, and also like how I view it too. Like I kind of want to give it a rewatch now, like that I've seen the documentary and I know so much
Yeah.
more about it than I do. Like, and see if I still feel the same way as like I'm glad this exists, but like I don't care. But like, yeah, I'm very curious to revisit the special after this.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for how much Star Wars talk and Star Wars analysis there are in all our shows, and all our friends have shows, and their friends have shows, and there's a lot of Star Wars talk. It is amazing how much there's still left to talk about Star Wars because almost every topic in this, I was like, I've been saying that for years, but I'm so happy that it's all put in one place. All these thoughts are put in
Mhm.
one place to explain to people about this. And you're like, that's a lot of new information, I think, for a lot of Star Wars fans watching this. Like, I had no idea. I mean,
Oh,
there was stuff
yeah.
in there that I had no idea. And I'm like, geez, this thing is in depth.
Yeah.
I think I probably knew less than half of like a lot of the stuff that got dropped during that documentary.
And certainly seeing it all put together in the high quality versions, the Donnie and Marie show and stuff like that. It was like
Oh
that.
my gosh, yeah.
It really sold like, no, this is what TV looked like because you know that every version you see is so degraded. And everything
Oh yeah.
it really does a service to Star
I'm-
Wars. This documentary.
And I'm also really glad that I finally got a little bit more detail about Luke's House of Wax look. Like
Yeah.
throughout the whole
Right.
thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. They slathered him in stage makeup because they were stage people.
Right.
Right. And then the copy that everyone was seeing for years was like 4 generations removed from
Yeah.
whatever the original
Glad they
recording
explained
was,
that.
which
Continued
always
degradation.
just subtracts information. So yeah. We wind up with Raccoon Boy, Luke Skywalker, Rebel
Yeah.
Pilot.
Yeah, I call it. I wrote down some notes here. Love boat casting is what I call it. This is what Love Boat
Oh,
looked
yeah.
like. These are all the people who show up on
Yes.
the Love Boat, and it's the
Mhm.
most unhip stuff. I love Star Wars is put up against the most unhip forces in entertainment. And Bob Hope, it even gets down to Bob Hope. I'm like, you don't get less funny in 1978 than Bob Hope. Like it's like that is just such 40s and 30s humor, you know. I mean, well, no. Talk about the oldest TV show possible. There's a honeymooner in this Star Wars thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Art Carney. That is as old a TV comedy as you get. Now, I love Art Carney. He does what he can. Everybody does what they can. And he's funnier than everybody else is supposed to be funny in
Mhm.
in the whole thing. I mean, you kind of look at that and you go, God, Art Carney was a master. Like
Mhm.
he's
Yeah.
making me chuckle, and I'm trying not to laugh because this is pretty dumb.
Oh,
You
he
know?
charms me every time I watch it,
Good
and I still think
That's why he
not
won an
Harvey,
Oscar around this age.
not Harvey Korman, the one who was Three Guys. Who is that guy?
Yeah, that's Harvey Korman.
Oh, that's Harvey
Yeah,
Korman.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's
I
Harvey
thought he
Korman.
was the. I thought. Wait, so wait. Oh,
Art Carney's
is who I was
the
thinking.
family
Okay,
friend.
so
The guy in the
out
Han
of
Solo vest,
two out
the
of
traitor.
the three Corman bits. Like I love how much time they spent on the Julia Childs cooking parody because I
It's
think
such
that
a
scene
weird bit.
that
Such a
scene
weird
is
thing.
legitimately funny. Like if that was a Saturday Night Live sketch, if that was a Saturday Night Live sketch where it was like the Wookiee homemaker doing the cooking show, that would be a classic Saturday Night Live sketch from 1977-78.
For
I
sure.
guarantee.
Oh, yeah,
And,
it's such a weird bit, but I think it's honestly one of the only comedy bits that actually works.
yes, for sure. And then I always actually thought his weird robot instructional video was really funny too.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not like a really great scene.
He's
that a
working.
lot of people like.
He's
but
working
I,
it.
I thought it was. I thought that was a funny.
It's
weird
Carol Burnett
scene.
funny. It's Carol
Yeah.
Burnett funny.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, you're like, oh, this is a Carol Burnett sketch. I love Carol Burnett. I'll watch the Carol Burnett people do
Sure, yeah.
skits. You know.
Yeah.
What's her B Arthur? I was
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
oh, it's Maude. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'll watch Maude do something. I watch Maude do something anyway. I watch Maude for a half hour.
Yeah.
I watch Harvey
I-
Korman for a half hour.
I love
Yeah,
that
sure,
they
why
were
not?
able to pull like old B. Arthur interviews where she's bringing this stuff up.
Yeah.
She was the best.
Oh my! One of the things that blew my mind that I didn't know about at all was the thing with Robin Williams, how they almost got him.
yeah.
Oh my good
Wow.
God.
Like this would have been such a different energy. Because I was just thinking through the whole thing. I was like, what if they had gotten like
Instead of Harvey Korman,
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
and
Like-
you're
probably what
and
they
you're
would've
forced
done.
to improvise, which
Yeah.
Harvey Korman obviously was. Like, make it funny. Oh my God, Robin
Yeah.
Williams in that role?
But yeah, like if they'd gotten at least like one kind of like hipper younger star, or like I mean, it would have been a whole different beast if they'd gotten someone like a Belushi. But like,
That would have been too rad.
This looks very different. Like if, like I think if what was it, Akoma, the initial director, like if he'd probably been in before, like maybe for like the casting and stuff, it might have
Did you say
been
Coma?
Akuma. What's the original director's name?
Oh! I thought you meant the director of Coma was one of these people. There's a movie
Oh,
in the '70s called Coma.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Michael Crichton directed that.
Oh, right, he did direct
Yeah.
Coma.
But
Good
yeah,
point.
like just
See, I love this. Yeah, I go out in the normal world and I go, there's a movie called Coma, and nobody says anything. They certainly don't go, oh, Michael Crichton directed that. I don't hear that anywhere else in the world. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I would love to see the alternate history timeline where like somebody younger is in the producer's chair, like casting this, like and see what
Mhm.
that version looks like.
Yeah, but that's how
Hmm.
old farty the standard media was. The
For sure.
decisions of the '70s are made from people who entered the industry in the '50s.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%.
But I love that we have such a time capsule because the most hip, most modern thing, Star Wars, is now. Well, what would that look like if anybody but a genius made it for TV? And it's like, that's exactly what TV looked like. They
Right.
did it correctly. In fact, it
Yep.
looks like it has a huge budget.
Yeah. And then the other thing is they were wanting Cher in the Diane Carroll role.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was
And she
brought
would
up.
have done it. She did
Yeah.
these type of TV. She had a Sonny and Cher show.
I think there was a scheduling conflict. I've heard
Yes.
Yeah.
because the actual
Man.
costume was made for Cher. And with that in
Of
mind,
course it was. Bob Mackie was Cher's
yeah,
designer. All the Oscars she went to, which made all the headlines, that were always Bob Mackie dresses. Before anybody did a Oscars show where they talked about the dresses, that was invented in the 90s. But the news would pick up one dress at the Oscars and would report about that dress, and it was Bob Mackie's Cher dresses. That's amazing. I never even connected that. Oh, Cher, Bob Mackie. Of course, that's a Cher
Yeah.
dress.
That
Oh,
makes sense.
and she would make news when she would wear a Bob Mackie dress. So Star Wars Holiday Special would have made news.
Yeah.
If Cher wearing one of those. Wow, that's incredible. What could have been?
And you see that costume now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see her in it much more than Diane Carroll.
I just had a bolt of
Yeah.
lightning.
Yeah.
Of, that makes so much sense. That works so well.
Yeah.
That's a legendary moment if that happens. I think this would be known for that
Yeah.
Oh,
at
for
least for a
sure.
while. I love that they made an appearance on the Richard Pryor show. Richard
Yeah.
Pryor had a sketch
That
show.
was funny.
Yeah, the Richard Pryor sketch. I've seen that before, I think, and I've always
Yeah.
really enjoyed that bit.
And he was the rad comedy. He was of the time, you know. So that's there's pretty rad comedians in there as well as the old fogies.
Yeah,
yeah.
I put Richard Pryor in the holiday special.
I'm surprised he wasn't in it, considering like the connections and everything that were going on.
Yeah,
that's true. I guess that's too rad for because his show was, Richard Pryor's show. It's a rad sketch comedy. He's going to do social issues and stuff. But
Right,
they kept that at
edge.
arm's length. This was like the big family spot. You don't put Richard Pryor. Way too controversial.
Yeah, no,
That's
there is precisely zero edge to the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh, none.
Right.
It is
no
a
way
round Nerf ball of energy.
Yep.
What about when they pull the head off the bantha, Alex?
That yes, okay. The one little spike in the Nerf ball is the decimation of that poor stuffed bantha doll.
Which they need to
so
sell
cool.
that like at Galaxy's Edge right now.
I mean, it doesn't look just like that, but years ago at the Disney store in the Glendale Galleria, there was a bin of them on sale for $10. And I'm like, I've always wanted a stuffed bantha because of this one scene in the Star Wars holiday special, and I still have.
Wait, there's
a
a stuffed bantha head in this special? Did I miss that?
Yeah, no, it's when the troopers are rummaging through the house, he tears. It's just like looking for contraband.
It's like just a
quote,
plushy
unquote.
bantha.
right.
Yeah.
And there's
He's just like
right.
tearing up Lumpy's room and thinks, oh, perhaps there are space drugs inside the child's stuffed animal, and rips off the head and says, no, it's just foam. And then there's a scene. What really makes it sad is when Lumpy like has the two pieces and he's like trying to put them together and they don't go.
Then he lays
Lumpy
his friend
is-
to rest.
Yeah.
Lumpy is such a tragic figure in the grand annals of Shakespeare.
Well, and you know what? Much like I was saying, like, no, when seeing Walrus Man again was mind blowing. Seeing an Imperial officer too. I remember thinking that at the time, going, "Oh yeah, well now there's a little Empire in this too." Yeah, I remember that. It's like,
Yeah.
they get all the references except for Darth Vader, but it's like even seeing an Imperial officer, I was like, "This is Star Wars. This really is Star Wars." By the way, one of the writers they didn't get into, they mentioned Pat Proft. Do you guys know who Pat Proft is?
I don't think outside of the context
The name sounds familiar.
Pat Proft wrote all of the Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker movies. He's the fourth credited writer on Airplane, on Top Secret, on all the Zucker movies. Pat Proft is listed on those, and there's a great movie called Brain Donors. Have you ever heard of this movie?
I've seen Brain Donors.
Brain Donors, the idea.
He created Police Academy. He created
Proft, yeah,
the concept and original screenplay and characters of Police Academy.
Okay, right. That's Pat Proft as well. Yeah, big heavy hitter at the time. But he also, the Zuckers wanted to make a modern Marx Brothers movie, or maybe Pat Proft himself, but I think there was some connection of take the format, because the Marx Brothers had a format. It's like, just beat out what a Marx Brothers movie would be, write a Marx Brothers movie, and then we'll just cast it and see who we can get to emulate the Marx Brothers. And so John Turturro is Groucho, and then a couple of the comedians at the time, a very good silent mime comedian is cast in the I forget his name right now, but in the Harpo role. And then they went like with a New Yorkie kind of guy instead of Italian, impersonation for the Chico. It's called Brain Donors.
I'm adding that to my watch list right
Brain
now.
Donors is super fun. Really,
you're gonna love it, especially if you know the backstory. They were just trying to write a Marx Brothers movie, and Turturro as Groucho is just so genius casting. Oh my gosh! And to this day, when I leave people, I say, "I bid you a fondue," which is from Brain Donors.
That's a great line.
It's the best. I bid you a fondue.
That's great.
Which is a combination. I bid you a fond farewell, and I bid you adieu. I bid you a fondue. So good stuff. So yeah, Pat Proft worked on. Well,
yeah, that's amazing. I had no idea. I only ever latched on to Blanche because weirdly prominent figure in the 90s. I'm
He
seeing
really
his face on
was.
television. Like I can't think of why I know exactly who Bruce Valanche is,
But
I've
everybody
always
does.
known.
As soon as he
Same.
shows up,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, there he is.
He became pretty ubiquitous. There was articles written, maybe Spy Magazine or something in the 90s about patter writers and punch-up writers, and he's the most famous. He was
Yeah.
highly paid for Oscars. He wrote the Oscars year after year after year. So all the Billy Crystal Oscars, that's Bruce Valanche doing the writing. So he just became, because that was a bit of a powerhouse thing, like the Billy Crystal years in the Oscars, of like, who's making these things so funny? And he would get interviewed and stuff like that. So he became a known patter writer, but he
Yeah.
That
went
makes sense.
But
way
like,
back. In fact, it became so ubiquitous that if you look up patter writer David Cross, David Cross makes fun of him in an interview thing, and I can't remember what it was for, but he's like, I'm a patter writer. And it was him being Bruce Valanche. But
it's just Bruce Valanche's career and what he's known for. Like on IMDb, he's got 92 writing credits, but like self and acting credits, almost 200 total.
Right.
So like it
Wow.
tells you like,
like
how much he's known as a personality more
Right.
than
He became
his actual
ubiquitous,
job.
yeah.
Yeah, like the only times I've ever seen him, like it's always as a talking head on something.
Mhm.
Usually,
Yeah.
but amazing that he's involved. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a Bob Mackey level writer.
Yeah.
You know,
for
you're like,
sure.
oh my God, they got Bruce Valanche. Jeez. You know, maybe he wasn't this big a heavy hitter at the time, but they weren't phoning it. Pat Proft and Bruce Valanche, you know, these guys are going to go on to much bigger things, but pretty
Right.
huge.
Yeah.
yeah.
So seriously, a documentary that's worth
Mhm.
watching. My brother texted me. He's actually watching it right now. I recommended
Nice.
it to him.
It's going to blow
recently.
away so many people who don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that it takes a loving look at it. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah. We get how to piss on this, please. You know,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
interesting though. It's like, yeah, what is interesting is the real history behind it.
Yeah.
Granular.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Mhm.
Thanks for bringing us together and having us watch this one, Trav.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, you're
absolutely. Oh
welcome.
my
Good
gosh, I didn't even
call.
know it existed till
Oh.
Travis told me.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fun watch. Fun, interesting watch. And as far as more content on it, the one of the directors. Okay.
There was a play done here in Hollywood 2 years ago at some theater over there by where Amoeba used to be,
Mhm.
you know, somewhere in Hollywood. That was the creation of the. It was a day. It was like a day behind the scenes on the making of it, based on a lot of these facts and stuff. And I wonder if that'll ever get put out again, because that was a cool idea.
That's cool.
Yeah. And as far as more info, Steve Kozak, who was one of the writer and directors of this,
Great
he says
job.
that there is more stuff that they just couldn't fit into the doc as far as stories and stuff goes. So he also wrote a book. And
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So you can also like purchase the book. It's available right now. It came out the same day as the doc. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, is it the same name?
it's the
I'm all
same
in.
name. It's with a semicolon, how and why the Star Wars Holiday Special happened.
Okay. Well, that's too bad my Christmas list is already, come and gone, but I will definitely be reading this book.
Hey,
By the way-
your New Year's list, though, however.
Good call.
By the way, speaking of books, related to this topic a little bit, when they got into Charlie Lippincott, which I was so thankful for, because what an unsung hero. We've already covered that. And that's when I knew this documentary was going to go deep. And I go, oh man, yeah, there's a lot to say about Charlie Lippincott that's never been in anything. And then they went there. Like I said, the whole thing has just been ticking boxes of like, whoa, I'm so happy people know this now. This is
Yeah.
such valuable context. At Comic-Con, I ran into this guy, Craig Miller. And we were talking about the so if you want an interesting book, I mean, it's an insider look. So this is the first fan outreach employee of Lucasfilm. So again,
Oh,
they didn't know they were going to need that. They didn't know they were going to need Charlie Lippincott. They didn't know they were going to need a Craig Miller. But he's the guy that set up all the idea of going to Comic-Cons, Lippincott's, and some initial execution. Every year after it was Craig Miller. There were a lot of things they didn't know that they were going to need to do to advertise it, My favorite thing, this is why I bought this book. My favorite thing, so I went to Comic-Con. He's there selling copies of his book, Star Wars Memories. My Time in the Death Star Trenches by Craig Miller, forward by Gary Kurtz. And I'm talking to him, and he says, so all the initial advertising stuff that had to be done, any like outreach, if you wanted to put Darth Vader in a local supermarket, like, let's say, for example, Brookville, Ohio's IGA, McMakin's IGA, in the summer of 1979, 80, 81. No, it was before Jedi. So it's like summer of 82. Darth Vader came to the Brookville, Ohio, McMakin's IGA. But the other thing that he did, have you guys heard the 900 number that you would call before Empire Strikes Back came out?
I have heard those.
Okay. Talk about another thing I had to tell people existed that they didn't believe me until the interview. So my parents would let me call, and they would change the message. So it was 4 months leading up to Empire, and each month they would change the message. So C-3PO, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker. So I would get to call once a month and hear about Star Wars. I mean, it was equivalent to the holiday special.
Yeah.
So I have a podcast called The Ford Fiesta, where Paul and I only talk about Harrison Ford. And we played those tapes on our show, and we said there's outtakes for everybody but Harrison Ford. And so we were like, how many takes did you think Harrison Ford did? Was it like, that's it? That's all I'm giving you? Gotta go. So we're talking to this guy, and he's telling me, Craig Miller, and he's telling me about, how he got certain jobs at Lucasfilm, certain jobs that wouldn't even know needed to exist. He had to fill that, including a 900 number. Who would have guessed? They're like, to advertise it, let's do a 900 number. So he had to go record all of them. The recordings are by this guy. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, I laid down $20. I'm like, I'll take a book. How many takes did Harrison Ford do? And he could, the dumbest thing to need to confirm in life. And I'm like, how many takes did Harrison Ford do? And he goes, 2. I was like, all right.
Amazing.
Anyway, long story there, but you reminded me, and I thought for a second this guy might make an appearance in this documentary we were watching, because once they got into Lippincott, I was like, well, the next step after Lippincott is Craig Miller,
I was also happy to hear happy to see Rinsler in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
To see J.W.
Talk
Rinsler,
about a guy who gets deep
just,
into the history.
I know. I was, I'm still very sad about his passing, but wonderful that this movie had him, got to talk to him before he passed and contribute his perspective and his knowledge to the.
Yeah, that's what a scholar
academically
sounds like.
Research proceedings.
That's what a scholar sounds like. It's like everybody else is anecdote, scholar. Well, actually, Plato wasn't in. I mean, you could almost like hear out of his voice. He really said it precise too. You're like, that was a lot of detail into what he just said there. Yeah, really cool. And yeah, we've all read the books, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't he do the Taschen book? Is that him?
No, well, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But...
I think just the.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah. Like.
But everything else.
But the Taschen book on the prequels is the closest you're going to get to a Rinsler book.
That's the Rinsler book. Right.
Yeah.
And the Indiana Jones.
The Taschen book, at least on the original trilogy, just kind of reads like condensed versions of Rinsler's books, or it did to me anyway.
Not the big.
The Taschen book, the first one, the one on the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I got 5 new I know extensive history, and I got 10 new details in the first 2 pages of the Taschen book. But that's mostly about Lucas's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, sure. You get that. Yes, there is about that, and that section's wonderful.
You know who Saul Bass is?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. George Lucas, before he ever made Graffiti, Saul Bass won an Oscar for a movie that George Lucas was part of the shooting crew on. You're like, holy crap! When he was shooting race cars for the James Garner movie Grand Prix, that's like Saul Bass doing B-roll, hiring George Lucas. I'm like, why have I never heard that George Lucas and Saul Bass worked together? Like, that should be a first thing you mentioned. Anyway.
I know. It's like, I only learned that Harrison Ford was a roadie for the Doors, a couple of years ago or something. Right, that same kind of information.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
The hole goes very deep. That's how much information there is to know about this stuff. It's like I said, this documentary really, it made a lot of YouTubers irrelevant on this topic, at least.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I don't know if we've got anything else left to say on it.
No, we covered all the topics. I just went through my book here. That's everything I had to say. Pat Proft exclamation point. There we go.
Sweet.
Although I did have one more thought, which is, the advertising of Star Wars and how they would put Boba Fett in the parades and,
Yeah.
get him on the Muppets, get him on Donnie Marie, get him. And let's like, I love that there's such an old school hucksterism about that. Like, who's the film? William Castle, right? Who would create like
Yes.
the electrified seats and
events.
Perceptor.
Mhm.
I love that, George Lucas is making a pulp movie. He knows he's making a pulp movie, and he's kind of doing all the William Castle stuff too. You're like, this has got a sheen that it's this great movie, but don't forget, at its heart, man, we're out here hucking in the streets. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of hucksterism going on there. Oh, and the other thing is, I love that famous photo of the Man's Chinese Theater with the Star Wars line around it. Right?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great.
It occurred to me while watching this, I'm like, lines around the corner was not news until Star Wars did it. Like, maybe there was news about that on Jaws, but it didn't make the news. But Star Wars, that photo was everywhere. Look at the lines. That became a news story. Everybody's seeing Star Wars. And it blew my mind that they released 3 Marvel comics before Star Wars was even released
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
give the feeling that this was sort of based on an existing property or whatever. That was another genius move. But the Man's Chinese Theater photo has been ingrained in my head since I was a kid. It was in every Star Wars book I had since I was a kid. And I just want to say I now live a 10-minute walk from the Man's Chinese Theater. So
There you go.
it feels
yeah.
really cool when I walk past it because I'm like, this image has been burned in my head. And I see it again in this documentary. I'm like, it's the only famous place, basically, if you have to limit it to one because of that photo
Yeah.
in Star Wars. I'm like, this is the most famous place. Forget the Empire State Building. This is right here.
It's true.
Movie
For sure.
palace.
Cool.
And that's where I saw Godzilla -1. No line.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah, Godzilla ruled.
Oh, amazing, right? I mean, I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan too, and I'm like, everybody's talking about Godzilla. This is so great.
Yeah. You got
like when it gets far enough to like non-movie people are talking about Godzilla, you're like, whoa.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
well,
true.
in a Toho production of Godzilla.
Yeah,
Right.
with subtitles. You know how long it was before we got a subtitled Gojira? That was like 2006 or something. I mean, it was
Yeah,
a
it
long
was
time.
definitely
2000
21st
maybe?
century. Yeah.
Yeah, before you got a subtitled Godzilla, and now the most available form is subtitled ones when you find them on streaming. You're like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's the natural form of it now. Oh, another thing is, people forget that aren't as old as me. Nothing used to be letterboxed. Everything's letterboxed now. TVs
Yeah.
are letterboxed. Who won that format war? Letterboxed. My TV is letterboxed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Good times for movie fans.
Agreed.
Yep. All right. Well,
I bid you a fondue.
I bid you a fondue.
There you go.
So that is our take currently on A Disturbance in the Forest. Maybe we'll come back with more thoughts later.
a good title.
But yeah. So until next time, and until probably when we come back, we're going to be doing more Dangerous Game, Most Dangerous
Yeah,
Game shows.
let's do that.
In
What
which
do
we
you usually cover? What's the most dangerous
So
game?
That-
one
I don't
of
watch
the-
TV.
One of our sub shows is called The Most Dangerous Podcast, and that is where we analyze different film adaptations of The Most Dangerous Game.
Oh, it's great.
And we've done a
Hard
bunch so
Target.
far.
Yep.
We did Hard Target. We did the original film. We did The Pest. We
Surviving
did
the
Surviving the
Game.
Game. We did a lot of the key ones.
interesting.
Turkey Shoot. We did
Turkey Shoot,
an
The Running
exploitation.
Man.
Oh,
Was it
Running
Psycho?
Man.
Psycho
Yeah,
Cat? Was that
Confessions
the
of a
one?
Psycho
Oh,
Cat.
yeah.
That was the porno exploitation from the late 70s. That was the Most Dangerous Game, Rick.
With
Did you
Jake
do the one-
LaMotta.
did you do the one with Ike Barinholtz? What is that?
The Hunt.
No. Oh,
The
The Hunt.
Hunt.
No, we did do The Hunt.
We did
Oh,
do
yeah.
The Hunt. Yeah. Yep. We've
Great.
done we've done like
So
10
we
or
did The Hunt,
12
but not Ready or Not. That's it, right?
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Ready or Not, that's another one. Yeah. Oh, you know what you haven't? You know what you have to do? The Pest with John Leguizamo.
Yeah, we
we
did
did that was
we
like
did that.
episode 2.
Nice. That's
We
amazing. Well, I
couldn't
gotta
wait
go
to
find
talk
that.
about
then.
The Pest.
Yeah.
These
I
were
love
well,
The
these were
Pest.
well researched and less off the cuff shows. These were
Oh,
better
that's
shows.
great. That's great.
So yeah, Adam, if
But
you
we'll
come
go
up
into
but I
it
could.
because-
with any Most Dangerous Game, whether it be a movie or a television episode, and you're like, I want to
Okay.
talk about
Oh,
that.
we
Yeah.
did that episode where we did TV episodes
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Forgot about 'cause we
Fantastic.
did. What was it? We did Clone Wars, that episode of Batman the animated series, and
Mhm.
I think we did
Always
the It's
Sunny.
Always
Always
Sunny
Sunny.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
what a
Mac
great
and Dennis
idea.
Manhunters episode.
Oh, what a great idea. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, check it out.
I gotta
Yeah.
go. Yeah, I gotta go check that out. Again, talk about like obscure pop culture that few people get, but I'm on the level. You guys are on the level.
Thanks,
Hell
man.
yeah.
So yeah.
So in the meantime, so Adam, where can people find you and all your work?
Well, I mean, your audience might likely know already, but if you've found me entertaining, get a whole bunch more of me over at The Movie Guys, themovieguys.net, or at The Movie Guys on any of your social media platforms, because we do a show. We're on a bit of a hiatus and right now, but we're up to the movie Sabrina in doing our Monday live show for the Ford Fiesta, where we only talk about Harrison Ford. And then we do live recordings of that. And then on our podcast feed, The Movie Guys, we have covered every Harrison Ford movie through Clear and Present Danger. So we record them in the show and then later spit them out as podcasts. But yeah, the Ford Fiesta. We talk about Harrison Ford. It's been a glorious time for Harrison Ford.
Great title.
So check the Movie Guys out. Oh, and also if you could subscribe to at Mike Post Composer, who just got on social media, the great Mike Post. I don't know if you know the name.
Yeah. Dadun? Did he?
Dun.
Yeah,
Oh,
he did the Law and Order 2 notes, right?
Right, he did the
That
two
are gonna
notes
pay
of
for
Law
his
and
family's
Order.
health care for generations.
Exactly right. Also, the Rockford Files, Magnum PI,
Right.
the A-Team,
Oh,
Riptide, Hill Street Blues, NYPD Blue, LA Law. And it goes on and on and on. But I'm helping put some stuff together for his social media, which is
Oh,
awesome.
very cool.
I mean, I'm a lifelong fan. So check it out. It's all stuff that I've, helped with, and a couple things I've edited, and it's really cool. You just have no idea how much history is behind the guy as well. He played on "I Got You, Babe," Sonny and Cher. He,
Wow.
He produced Kenny Rogers' first album with the first edition. So there's a Lebowski connection. He did every theme
Nice.
song, including the Lebowski theme song.
Amazing.
Oh, also, you guys would really get this, and I'm going to try and find some way to see if I could get some content on the site about this, but I'm not sure how he feels about this. He did the score to the original Captain America movie in 1979.
Oh, yeah.
The one with the
Oh,
no
Brown.
wait, the '90s one is the one with J.D. Salinger's kid.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
he did the Reb Brown one, because, I mean, he's
Yeah.
a famous TV composer, and that was a TV movie, TV production. Much more filmic than the Star Wars Holiday Special, I think, despite what flaws it had. But when I was a kid, I think it was Friday nights, The Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman 1-2 combo made me a lifelong live action superhero fan. There was nothing wrong with those shows. They look cheesy now, I guess, but I can't see it. But that was the most exciting night of television. But twice a year, it wouldn't be the Hulk in Wonder Woman. Instead, it would be Spider-Man for 2 hours or Captain America for 2 hours. And they would rerun those a couple times a year. That was some exciting stuff. Maybe it's cheesy now, but I definitely bought those copies at Comic-Con when I also bought the Star Wars Holiday
Oh,
Special.
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it was Spider-Man on TV, on my TV. Woof. That was good shit.
Oh yeah.
Are we cursing?
I think we can PG-13 it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's.
The Greatest American
Doesn't
Hero. Mike Post also wrote, believe it or
Great
not,
theme
I'm
song.
walking on air. A superhero TV show at that time. I mean, that was some good stuff, man. And that song,
Yeah.
that was some good stuff. So yeah, at Mike Post Composer, give it a follow and check it out
Give it
because
a
it's
follow.
fun information. And we're putting up all the theme songs and stuff. I'm helping like up-res them and stuff like that. So
Nice.
it's been really fun. It's been really fun to have a Mike Post theme song stuck in my head every day for the last 2 weeks. I am not bothered with that. It's a different one every day. I mean, you got 40 to choose from. But
There's worse jobs, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So having fun with that. But go check it
Nice.
out. It's I mean, he's such a legend. It's like asking you to follow John Williams, composer. Too much
Yeah.
pressure for you? Too much trouble? Oh, okay. He's a
Cool.
legend.
Awesome. So Dustin, how about you?
You can find me on just about every platform at Dustin Meadows. My YouTube is Dustin Meadows Comedy. That's where all my short films live. It's where a bunch of my music lives. It's where the Jaws collaborative remake that I did with a bunch of people during the first year of COVID lives. In the next week, it's going to be where my new composer reel drops, as well as a Halloween collaborative remake that is almost finished finally.
Nice.
Only 2 years after.
I was gonna say, I won't recognize my own kid who's in
Art's
that
hard.
from a few years
If we have
ago.
one theme tonight, it's art is hard.
Yeah,
Art is hard.
take it up with the 3 people who ghosted me on their scenes.
Woof.
How dare you?
All right. And Alex,
I'll have a word with you, sir. I'll give you a Harrison Ford point. How
Oh,
dare you?
I
How
had several
dare you?
words. I had several words, and they just didn't respond.
and Alex, how about yourself?
You can visit my website at abrunel.com, and you can hire me to pull your focus in 2024, and I will be there for your production.
Yeah.
And
Right
not
on.
just pull focus like an improviser where you're just doing something funny in the background. No, you mean
No, I'm gonna-
professionally pull focus.
Yeah, and if you're an actor who's a willful douchebag about your marks, I will make sure that the tip of your nose or the back of your ear is in focus, and no one will know until it's on TV.
Got him.
All right. And you can find me at Travis Fishburne. Find the show at Who Watches Pod. Reach the show at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com. We'll probably see you sometime next year. Probably talking about somebody getting hunted for sport. And so, until next time, have a happy 2024.
Happy 2024.
Happy Life Day.
The future is now.